Interest in EVs has skyrocketed. And no, this is not an April Fool's Day joke, but I will do a couple at the end of the video.
No! God, please, no!
Aussies are going electric and fast. Is it out of environmental altruism or pure economics? Either way, fuel is getting seriously expensive. War in the Middle East will do that. Now, as interest in EVs surges, one question is gaining traction. If these EVs skip the Bowser, does road maintenance take a hit? This is something that fuel taxes cover. If you're not filling your EV up with fuel, who's paying for the roads?
Not me.
In other news, the facelifted 2026 Ford F-150 has launched in Australia. Plus, we'll zoom in on one Japanese executive's views on how the future of the new car market will look. Spoiler alert, it's in a state of flux. And the PM's crackdowns on car brands' responsibilities that I covered last week has come into sharp relief. Yep, Xpeng's Australian distributor has collapsed into administration. It's not pretty. So yeah, there's a lot happening. Oh, and I've had a sticky beak at Mazda's new CX-6E electric vehicle. It looks pretty awesome, I will admit. And get ready for another Car Sales original series coming your way in 2026. In fact, it's already launched. Anyway, there's a lot to get to, so buckle up. Our search data is telling a very clear story of what's been happening in the last few weeks and months, and this is data that no one else has access to. Searches for EVs within Car Sales, which is Australia's biggest automotive website, have tripled in the past few weeks. Our internal data from early March 2026 saw searches for EVs spike by 77%, and then the following week they climbed another 64%. That's a lot. In fact, that's massive. And this is not a prediction, this is a pattern. And it lines up with what people are feeling. Fuel is getting expensive, the supply is shaky, and evidently EVs look like the safe bet right now. Even EV consideration, which we get from the surveys we run here at Car Sales, we normally get a couple of thousand responses each survey, that has jumped from 36% to 55%, which means more than half of buyers are now thinking about going electric. That's a massive shift, but here's where it gets interesting. The cars people are searching for are not necessarily premium brands. The 5 that stuck out were Geely, Zeekr, Polestar, Tesla and BYD. Okay, so Zeekr, Polestar, Tesla, a little bit premium, but Geely and BYD certainly not. And when you look at what's happening in the market right now, there are plenty of very affordable EV options. You can find a sub $30,000 EV drive away, even probably mid-20s now, brand new, full warranty, all that sort of stuff. And there's loads in the $30,000 bracket as well. Just a couple of years ago, there were almost none. So this changes the game. It makes it far more accessible to get into a brand new EV. And Dr. Lauren Pearson, a research fellow and equity lead within the Sustainable Mobility and Safety Research Group at Monash University, had some fascinating insights. And I quote, "For those who feel they have no realistic alternative to driving, this is not an abstract energy security debate. It is an immediate, everyday financial pressure." And she reckons Aussies want a proactive government, not just a reactive one. And I quote, "Australians want to hear not just how government will manage this crisis, but what the plan looks like beyond it. Not only how we become less reliant on overseas fuel reserves, but how we design mobility systems that are resilient to the next shock. Systems built around healthy, affordable and sustainable ways of moving." But as thousands of Aussies look to be preparing to make the jump to electric vehicles, the government is standing at the other end of the bridge with an all-new tax. Yep, Treasury is now officially putting a national road user charge back on the agenda for electric vehicles. So just as the technology is getting more affordable and more people are considering EVs, they could potentially become more expensive with who knows what it'll be, an annual fee, a mileage-based fee, we just don't know yet. And forget the standard budget cycle, although this is likely to come out in the budget wash in May 2026. National Cabinet has convened an emergency meeting. They convened it on Monday to talk about this worsening fuel crisis. It is a big, big issue. because, well, it affects everyone and everything. Before we go deeper into this, I want to know where you sit on the issue. Are you actually considering an EV based on these rising fuel prices, or are you not yet convinced? Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you guys think. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe because I do this every single week. Okay, so the experts are starting to call this out directly. And apparently it's not just about fuel prices. Associate Professor Ben Beck, who is the head of the same department I mentioned before at Monash University, had this to say, and I quote, "The current fuel price volatility is exposing the cost of car dependence. Australia has built a transport system in which too much daily life is tied to fuel, leaving households exposed to price spikes and supply disruptions. It also leaves the broader system exposed when freight, essential services, and everyday travel depend on the same strained fuel supply. Because right now, everything runs on it. Commuting, freight, daily life. I even had a remote control car once that ran on petrol. Man, that thing was sick. Revved to like 20,000 RPM. So, when fuel gets disrupted, the entire system feels it. Everything is going to get more expensive, from groceries to Pokemon collector cards. And yes, it's Pokemon. If it's Pocket Monster, it's Pokemon. My kids say, "Oh, it's Pokemon, Dad." But riddle me this, dear viewers. Are we about to see a new conversation that goes beyond EVs? Those experts from Monash University are saying the emphasis should be on public transport, it should be on cycling, and it should be on e-bikes, all of which would reduce the pressure at the fuel pump. And that sounds pretty good in theory, but in reality, and especially for those who live in regional areas, these things simply won't work. Now, just as EV demand is ramping up, the government is already moving. Let's talk about that national road user charge for EVs. Right now, vehicles filling up with petrol, diesel or LPG pay a fuel excise. EVs do not. For the record, an excise is an indirect tax, or as I like to call it, a tax. So now Treasury is looking at distance-based charges for road users. That means tracking how far you drive and then charging you money for it. This could be done via GPS. Most cars now have SIM cards installed. They have the technology to be tracked. However, that then brings up the privacy concerns. Who's watching? Who's tracking? Big Brother. The other option is odometer readings, but the flip side of that is that they can be fudged unless, a certain authority is policing these odometers and eyeballing them directly. I'll just put it in my logbook. I only did 3 kilometers this year. Great. Either way, the direction is clear. EVs are not going to be cheap to run forever. And here's the bigger shift. This might not stop at EVs. Over time, this new road user charge could apply to every single vehicle on the road in Australia. While no overall rate or average price has been confirmed of what people could be slugged with this road user charge, the previous model suggests we could be looking at a bill of between about $300 and $400 a year. So, I don't know. Is it a good thing? The Australian Electric Vehicle Association argues that EV owners already contribute via higher registration, stamp duty, GST, that sort of thing. And there is a legitimate concern that by slugging EVs with a tax this early in their career, there's still less than 1 in 10 new cars sold as an EV. This could stall the very transition the government claims to want. But Treasury is working on cold logic. As cars get more efficient and EVs proliferate, someone's got to pay for the bitumen. Maintaining roads is not cheap. So now you've got this tension. People are rushing towards EVs to escape fuel costs. But at the exact same time, the system is being tweaked to sort of pull that advantage back. Or at least stymie it somewhat. For a altruistic reason, I guess. We need roads. And even the manufacturers are not convinced. Mazda has come out and said it pretty bluntly. Nobody actually knows how this is going to play out. Yes, fuel prices are pushing people towards EVs and hybrids, but that does not mean EVs are a perfect solution. Electricity, after all, does not come free. Although having solar panels on your roof and a battery is pretty handy. So while the direction is clearly electric, the economics are not perfect for everyone. And that is where Mazda is sitting right now. They are building EVs because they have to, not because they want to. I recently spoke with Hiroshi Ozawa, the general manager of Chang'an Mazda's technical center in China. He was surprisingly frank, and I quote, "As you rightly said, since the war started, the price of petrol has gone up quite high. And in order to avoid paying a lot of fuel costs, I think people are searching for better fuel economy cars. We looked at that, the whole process at Mazda, and I think we are disadvantaged by this price hike." That's true because Mazda's portfolio right now has literally 0 EVs in it. The Japanese executive acknowledged that while the war in Iran and ongoing fuel price hikes are steering people towards EVs, it's not a silver bullet for everyone. Ozawa-san is pushing the well-to-wheel argument. He argues that the true cost of an EV must include how it's manufactured, what goes into the battery, the electricity used, everything. So, yeah, in that respect, it's true. It's not quite as cut and dry as you might think. And he said something really brave, and I quote, "But for the long term, nobody knows what will happen." That's probably the most sensible thing I've heard in the last month. Give this man a promotion. Because if anyone tells you they reckon they know what's going to happen in the next week, let alone the next month, locally or globally, the fact is, they're probably pulling your leg.
Tell him he's dreaming.
This candid chat with one of Mazda's most senior execs brings me to their latest vehicle coming to Australia, the CX-6E. We just reviewed it on the channel yesterday, and it's a big play. It uses a Chinese-developed platform to go straight after the Tesla Model Y. It looks like a Mazda, it feels like a Mazda, but it probably will be a lot more affordable than what a conventional Mazda EV might have otherwise cost. Check out my video on that vehicle for more deets. But the question remains, will loyal Mazda buyers who put a lot of value on Japanese reliability and build quality, will they follow the brand into this Chinese partnership? You know what? If the price is under 50k, I don't think anyone's going to care. And this is where the whole market begins to feel like there's a bit of a schism. There's a bit of a split. Because while this is happening, you've got some cars going in completely the opposite direction. And that's also due to customer demand. Take the updated 2026 Ford F-150 pickup truck. Huge truck, huge price. While the bottom end of the market is going electric, the top end of the dual cab world is reaching eye-watering price points. We just spent a couple of days in the new Ford F-150 Platinum. This is the new 2026 model, facelifted, and you can read all about that on the website. It costs almost $164,000 before on-road costs are added. That'll make it around $170,000 to get it on the road when you add all the government and dealer delivery charges. Plus, that's a $20,000 jump over the F-150 Lariat and a $50,000 jump over the XLT F-150 models. Does it feel like a $170,000 luxury vehicle? In some ways, it does. The seats fold near flat for a nap. Cool. And it massages you from your thighs to your shoulders. Super cool. But the big story is that Ford has been forced to acknowledge teething problems with the F-150 conversion program. Ian Jones, the program director of Ford's International Markets Group, which includes Australia and New Zealand, said, and I quote, "We acknowledge that there have been some teething problems in the first few years of this program. We've left no stone unturned to address any issues identified and have added some additional quality control gates and checks into the conversion process to deliver the best product for our customers. When we found out there were issues, we stopped the vehicle and stopped the production of that vehicle, and we spent a long time going through this truck on the remanufacturing process to validate everything and get it back to what our customers expect from our quality." So this vehicle will tow 4.5 tons. That's the big selling point. People that need to tow big things, big trailers, and do it regularly. This is the sort of car, F-150, Ram 1500, Chevy Silverado. And that 298 kilowatt twin turbo V6 motor is very nice. I have driven the previous 2025 models and it's nice. And it actually sounds pretty good too. Surprising. You kind of go, oh, it's not a V8, so it probably sounds like garbage. Au contraire. But clearly the F-150 rollout has had problems. Now they say it's fixed. New processors, new checks, better systems. I want to know what you think. Would you take the new 2026 F-150 for a test drive? Okay, if you're one of the 2,000 or so Aussies that bought the Xpeng G6, buckle up, because the distributor just went into administration. True EV, the sole importer and retailer of the Chinese brand here in Australia, had administrators appointed last week. That essentially means they've run out of money. And nearly 200 unsold vehicles across the nation are now in the hands of the insolvency firm taking care of this situation. And just like a maths dinner party, it gets even messier. True EV has actually taken Xpeng itself to the federal court. This is a blow-up. So yeah, these two automotive companies are lawyered up and now at war with each other. And sadly, existing owners are caught in the middle. Warranty claims, part support, right now it's anyone's guess. By the time this video airs, we should have a few more details on what's going on with these two companies. And if we get more, we'll plug it into the comments below. So keep an eye out. True EV had big plans for the Xpeng brand. 25 dealerships, new models coming out, and now none of that looks likely. It's a cautionary tale for anyone looking at buying a cut price vehicle from an emerging challenger brand. The car might be great, and for the most part, modern cars are pretty good. But if the distributor folds, you're left holding something that might be virtually worthless. And there's one more story I need to quickly touch on. Now, this one is around Hyundai. Now, Hyundai has paused Aussie deliveries of the new Palisade after an incident in the US was linked to malfunctioning power folding seats. Now, I'm not going to dive into the weeds here, but it does highlight something. Modern cars are very, very complex. And when something goes wrong, they get attention very quickly. Hyundai is working on a fix, a software update that is expected to solve that problem. So we'll leave that there, because after a week like this that we've just had, and probably the weeks we're gonna have moving forward, it does raise a bigger question. What actually are we chasing in our new cars? More tech, more features, more luxury, all of which often create more complexity. I think a lot of people just want a good experience behind the wheel. And here is the interesting bit. While you won't be able to buy a Palisade for a little while, you can see one in our new series. We've already taken it right across Tasmania in our new original series out there. Yep, Van Diemen's Land, glacial lakes, proper driving roads, and a little bit like Idle Talk, which you should check out if you get a chance. This is quite a different type of content we usually publish here at Carsales, but I reckon you'll like it, so if you get a chance, check it out. It's about the kind of road trip that reminds you why you were drawn to cars in the first place, the freedom and the adventure that they can afford. It's been a massive week in the car industry, and you can bet your bottom dollar next week is going to be just as massive, so make sure you subscribe so you can tune in. Why was the car so tired? It was running on empty. What kind of car does a sheep drive? A Lamborghini. Anyway. What kind of car does a Jedi drive? A Toyota. Okay, this isn't even April Fool's. This is just dad jokes. Yeah, I'll catch you later.